Good morning, this is your man Rev AG coming at you with Monday Motivations. I want to share 4 points on the power of obedience. In Exodus chapter 19, I believe it's verse 5, after God calls Moses to come up upon the mountain, he tells Moses that if the children would be obedient to God's voice indeed, and if they would keep his covenant, that he would make them a peculiar treasure above all the people of the earth. So what does it mean to obey God, and how do we obey God? There are 4 points. Number 1, we have to be open to God. Number 2, we have to believe God. Number 3, we have to engage God. And number 4, we must yield to God. Being open to God means being accessible on all or nearly all sides. So in other words, God is speaking more than we think he is. God doesn't just speak through your pastor. God doesn't just speak through the Bible. But God speaks through the common, everyday things of life. If you're in tune to God, you will hear God speaking just driving down the road. As I shared yet last week, God is speaking. Are you hearing? Just observing a few kids on their way to school, God speaks. So after you are open to God and you hear what God says, next you have to believe God. The Bible says without faith, it is impossible to please God, because the one that comes to God must believe that God is, and that God is a rewarder of them that diligently seek God. So often we believe our circumstances and we believe people above God. But if we're going to be obedient to God, we've got to believe him. Bishop Oscar Brown says we got to trust him even when we can't trace him. The third step of obedience is to engage God. Now this is a good thing, because God invites us to come to him when we have issues, when we have struggles, when there are things that we wrestle with. All of God's children at times wrestle with God, even Jesus. And I know many don't want to believe that, but Jesus wrestled with the will of God. In the Garden of Gethsemane, he says, Father, if there's any other way that we can accomplish this, then let's do it that way. Now, notice, he does not fight with the plan of God as far as what he came to do. He fights with the process. I don't want to go to the cross, Lord. I don't mind saving the world, but can't we do it without going to the cross? So Jesus had his own issue with it, but he engaged God. And after we engage God, then the final step in obedience is yielding. And you know that yield sign means there's already traffic flowing. You got to pump the brakes, and you have to submit to the traffic that's already flowing. God is that main highway, and you have to submit. You have to yield to God. And if we yield to God, the Bible says that we will be a peculiar treasure unto him, that he would treasure us above all the people of the earth. So my brother, my sister, learn the power of obedience. Obey God. Be open to God. Believe God. Engage God. Yield to God. This is your man Rev AG with Monday Motivation. Enjoy your day.